Hey there, it's Jason from Codemanship with another video diary entry. Today I'm talking about new shiny things. So a program I've known for many years and myself, we're having a discussion this week, sort of lamenting. There's a couple of old programmers moaning, in sort of get off my lawn style, about how much time younger software developers spend chasing the shiny new things. And I've been thinking about that more this week, and I think maybe I'm being a little unfair. Is there value in new shiny things? And I thought maybe I'm kind of missing a trick here, because in another area of my life, new shiny things play a very vital role. We've been Zooming each other for a year now, and people often comment on my Zoom background. And sometimes people will ask me, Jason, why do you need all those guitars? And the answer is I don't. I really don't. I didn't need to buy this, for example. I just wanted it. It's quite different than the guitars I normally own. Sounds different, plays different. But I just love the paint job. The paint job is called Purple Sparkles, and they had me at Purple Sparkles. It was relatively inexpensive. I bought it on a whim. I've noodled with it. I played with it. It's fun. It's a fun guitar. I think it looks spiffy, but no, I don't need another guitar. Excuse me. In fact, all the gear that I own, most of the guitar gear I own, don't really necessarily need it if you look at it in that sense. When I played in bands, although I owned quite a lot of gear, a lot of different gear, and a lot of guitars, when I actually played live or we recorded in studios, I would have a couple of guitars that I would take with me and 3 basic guitar sounds. So you've got your sort of clean, sort of spangly sound. Let's put a clean boost on there. Now hang on a second, where's my clean boost? There we go. And we would have a distorted sound. Let's go for a distorted sound here. Oh, we can do that just by switching to the distorted channel of our amp. And we would have 2 versions of the distorted sound, one that was even more distorted, and that's the kind of what I call the top of the mountain sound, so that has a lot of echo and reverb, which is kind of what you're hearing now. So your top of the mountain lead Guitar Hero sound, and then you would have another version of that where you would get rid of the echoes, and just have a sort of a dry sound, tight sound, and that would be your rhythm. And that would be it. For metal, that's pretty much all you need. Like the equivalent of the little black cocktail dress. So a man of simple means, a man of simple tastes. So I'd go out with maybe 1 or 2 guitars and a relatively simple rig, relatively simple setup that could make 3 different sounds. So in the sense of needing all that gear and needing all that choice, I didn't need it. But does that mean it served no purpose? Have I wasted all of this money and all this time playing with these toys? I don't think that I have. For starters, although those are the classic sounds and they don't change much, the way I'm making them and the quality of them has evolved quite a lot, and particularly the technology. So whereas before I would have had a real guitar amplifier with tubes and speakers and stuff like that, and we would stick real microphones in front of it, and I'd plug my guitar into that and go through my distortion pedal or my overdrive pedal or whatever I was using to create that sound. A lot of it is happening digitally. The stuff that you're hearing at the moment is not coming through speakers and then being recorded with a microphone. That's all being faked digitally with brand new technology that's really rather wonderful, particularly if you're a bedroom recorder like me. So the technology does evolve, even if the sounds don't change that much. So it's much easier to make those kinds of sounds at home if you're an amateur, for example, or if you live in an apartment and you can't really whack up the volume and get that big sound. So the technology improves, but also you have to find those sounds. They don't come out of the box, as it were. When I first started playing guitar in the sort of mid to late 80s, I bought my first guitar in 1988. I'd practiced on other people's before then. And it was a very simple setup. It was a guitar and a little amp, a practice amp with a 10-inch speaker. and it was a solid state amp, so it didn't use tubes to amplify the sound, it used transistors. And it sounded, with distortion, it sounded pretty awful. I went back to the shop after sort of getting frustrated that I didn't sound like my Guitar Heroes. I didn't have that top of Mount Olympus kind of sound, and was advised, well, the problem is the distortion that your little practice amp creates sounds awful, so you need to buy a distortion pedal. So I went out and bought a Boss heavy metal pedal, and that sounded way better, but I still wasn't getting that top of the mountain Guitar Hero sound. So I went back to the shop and they said, well, you need delay. And I said, all right, I need a delay pedal, so let's switch on some delay here to get those echoes. And you need a reverb pedal as well if you want to make it sound, really big. Let's go for Cave. So if you really want that top of the mountain sound, then you need all of that stuff. So now I've got the guitar, I've got the overdrive pedal, I've got the delay pedal, I've got the reverb pedal, got a bigger amp with bigger speakers and real tubes, so I was getting a much better sound out of that. And that process has kind of continued over the years. At the beginning, I didn't realise that I needed those things. I had no idea what they were, to be honest. But you kind of learn as you go. And when I started programming in BASIC back in the early 80s, it's a similar kind of thing. We're programming on things like the Commodore 64. It's not a grown-up computer in the same way that my little practice amp wasn't a grown-up practice amp. So there is a process of learning and hitting the limits of the technology you're using, and then thinking, well, I'm going to need a faster computer. I'm going to need a hard drive. I'm going to need a floppy drive. I'm going to need a graphics card, and so on and so on and so forth. I'm going to need Turbo Pascal. You always need Turbo Pascal. So there is that process of learning and then realizing. For example, I think I used my first automated refactoring tool 20 years ago. Before that, I had no idea they even existed, didn't realize I even needed one necessarily. And there wasn't many years before that, I didn't even know what refactoring was. So we kind of learn, and with that learning, sometimes we realize that a tool could help us. So that's part of the process, that creative process, if you like, of learning what works for you and what doesn't. And it's the equivalent of sort of finding your sound, those three sounds. So I mostly program in JavaScript, Java, and C#, occasionally in Python. That might be the equivalent of taking an acoustic guitar on tour with you. So occasionally might pick up an acoustic guitar, occasionally might break out a bit of Python. But I know a lot more languages than that. And every language that I've used and every language that I've learned has rubbed off on me a bit. I've taken a bit away from that. In the same way that every piece of guitar gear that I've owned, it's kind of rubbed off on me a little bit. So I'm going to show you my brand new shiny toy. This is the Strymon Sunset. It's a sort of 6 distortion pedals in one. So there's 2 channels, each with 3 different distortion circuits. It's a thing of joy. It can do heavy, it can do clean, it can do all sorts of wonderful things. It's a great piece of kit. Do I need it? No, I don't really need it. I've already got a ton of distortion and overdrive pedals. Both analog and digital. Everything is possible. But I'm getting inspired by it. So it's kind of encouraging me to pick up the guitar again. It's always fun. And also I'm learning stuff from using it, that because some of these distortion types, like there's a gallium, what do they call it? Not gallium. It's gone. Germanium, that's it. A germanium diode in here. And they're becoming quite the thing in distortion pedals these days. I've not owned a distortion pedal with a germanium diode, so I'm kind of experimenting with it and going, put this on the clean channel. What does this sound like? Where's the sweet spot? So that's kind of like a nice overdrive, but you can really push it. So we can experiment with this. And I can take stuff away from that. It is actually turning out to be quite useful as well, having 6 distortion pedals in one pedal, and being able to also, we can combine them and we can stack them on top of each other and run them in parallel. So there's many, many choices, many possibilities. So in some ways, I think gear these shiny new things give us more choices, more ways of achieving. Maybe that we're achieving the same thing, that we're still doing those three sounds: the top of the mountain, the rhythm, and the clean sound. But we've got more choices about how we can do that, and we can evolve that sound as we go. So I own a lot of guitar gear, partly because in that process of learning over the years, I've realised I've needed some of it. Partly to inspire me when I've not picked up the guitar for a while, and I'm thinking, well, maybe I should get a new guitar or a new pedal or something, and that will inspire me. And partly because it gives us choices, it gives us more ways of achieving what we need to achieve. So even if I were to go on tour with a very simple pedal board, that pedal board would be the culmination of sort of research and development, if you like, of trying lots of different things and trying them together, and then eventually whittling it down to, okay, this is the rig that I'm going to go with. And if you meet guitar players who are professionals or who tour, their rigs very rarely stay the same. There are very few guitar players who had the same rig year on year on year. Very often from year to year, the technology changes, even if their sound doesn't change that much. So that's what I think. That's what I'm thinking now. I think I've been a little unfair. I think new shiny things have their place. So I guess maybe what we were really complaining about is not that there are all these new shiny things that we have to learn, because secretly I kind of enjoy learning them. I think maybe it's the amount of attention they get, the amount of focus, the amount of energy we're putting into them, into always changing things. And that means we need to find a balance between the new and shiny and the tried and tested. In the same way that I can't spend every waking hour playing guitar, and I can't spend every penny I have on guitars and guitar gear, because I have to buy other things like alcohol, for example, because I have a life. And it's the same with new shiny things, new tools, new frameworks, new programming languages. We put some time aside to try stuff and experiment and learn. But then we still need to go back to what we know works to get stuff done. We still have to have our sound, our go-to sound, as it were, in our rig that we're going to take on tour with us to get things done, to figure out what it is we need to do to get the result that we want. So there's a mix of discipline there. There's the creative, the learning side of it, trying and experimenting, but then there's the getting stuff done with stuff you know side of it. So that's the equivalent of taking the guitar that you know you can trust, and taking the rig that you know is going to work and that's going to give you the sound that you want. So there you go. The new shiny things, maybe not as bad as I make out, but maybe we could devote less time to that. And find some balance there. Anyway, I hope you're staying safe. With a bit of luck, if I can find the time, and I'm not too busy buying guitar gear or playing guitar, I'll do another video diary entry next week.